Hi, I'm Danny Fox and I'm a new team member at DNA. You join me on one of my favourite venues at the moment, which is A1 Pits. There's a number of different lakes on the complex that suit all different angling abilities, but me personally, I'm drawn to Pit 6 because I like to fish at range, and with it being the biggest pit on the complex, it suits my style. So I actually arrived yesterday afternoon, managed to find a few fish just showing off this split bank, so I set up camp here. Over the next 48 hours, I'm going to show you how I approach fishing at range on a big pit. Obviously I got here yesterday and my rods are already set out on the spot. I'm going to leave them for the rest of the day today because I have seen a few fish just showing in the vicinity. The plan is to make a little bit of a mix up now, and then potentially later on I've seen a few fish showing more to my left. So the plan is to try and find a little spot on that bar, which is around 36 wraps, depending on where you stood in the peg. So the plan is to make a bit of mix up, move a rod over to the left, and see if we can't pick a fish up from there. So since starting back down here in March, I've had around 20 fish now from this venue, which is not easy. There's people that come on here and can struggle. I myself struggled at the beginning, but since using the bug, my confidence levels have gone through the roof. I'm going to start by showing you how I make my mix, and it starts with a big bug, and I'm going to put them through the crusher, and that's the base of my mix. So as you can see, that's the base of my mix. There's plenty of big chunks in there and loads of fine stuff. They'll just keep them rummaging around. Obviously to that base mix, and then I want to be adding some of the new improved hydro spod syrup. Good helping, a good lashing of that. And to that, also some cannelist liquid. If you've been following DNA social media, you'll know that the bug and the insect meal are a really good combination. So adding this powder is going to cling to all that liquid and make sure that it all goes on the same spot. When you get to something like that, that's the sort of consistency I want, because it'll pack into the spot, into a nice ball, but it'll break down once it hits the bottom. So there's two main reasons why I use the liquid. One obviously is for the attraction, and the other one is that it can bind in the spawn, and all them smaller particles, and then make sure that they're sat on that bar where I'm fishing. I'm going to complement it with some of the 12 millers, just so there is some bigger food particles in there. And what I'm going to do with that is just complement it with a bit of sweet corn, just for that fleck of colour, making sure that you get all the liquid in there as well. And that is how I want it to look. So now that's the bait all prepped, I'm going to leave the rods for the rest of the day. We're going to see what happens. Potentially we'll move that rod over to the left. If we start to see a few fish showing over the baited area, I'll leave the rods where they are, but at least I've got a mix ready for later on. So the day's quickly drifted away and the sun's about to set. We did manage to top up the spot earlier. We put 30 bombs on it, and we've kept all 4 rods really tight on that spot. Didn't bother moving that rod over to the left, mainly because we didn't see many more fish show there. We have marked it up, it's ready there for tomorrow. If we do see the fish showing there again in the morning, we can quickly get a rod on them. We've got roughly a couple of hours of light left, so we're going to sit, watch the water, bed down for the night, and see what the night brings. A quiet night last night, and the wind really did drop off and we didn't see many fish showing. This morning we've woke up, first light, and they're showing again to the left of the swim. So the plan is to move into the swim to my left. It's only one swim over, but it gives me the option to wade out a little bit further. So I'm going to get down there, I'm going to put a lead at full throttle, see how far I can put it out there, and see if I can get close to them fish what we're seeing shore. So we're in the new swim now. It's a real popular swim called the Bin. It was empty yesterday. It's a swim I fished a lot. So I do know the spots out there. It's roughly 36 to 37 wraps, depending where you stood, from here to the bar. So with the wind dropping now, it's gonna make it a lot easier for me casting. Yesterday, you saw me casting and the wind was in my face. It probably took 10, 20 yards off my maximum cast. So hopefully with this wind dropping now, I'll be able to punch that lead right out there and get on that bar properly. Right, so that's the spot found. It was the bar what I thought it was. So fish is showing still out there. We've hit the bar, we've pulled the lead back. It's dropped down the slope, still into gravel, and then it comes into weed. So we're gonna fish just over that weed and onto the gravel bar. Let's get some bait on the spot. As you can see, we're all set up in the new swim. Rods are all wrapped up. So the spot out there was 35¼ wraps. So I've wrapped the rods up at just over 35. It's a very shallow bar that I want to be fishing on. Sod's law, the wind has picked up, but did manage to get around 20 spoms out onto the area. There was still fish there, so I didn't want to overdo it. A lot of the times in here, I'll put a lot of bait out. There is big packs of fish, and when they move around, they'll just clean you out. So let's get these rigs out there and start fishing. Right, so that's all the rods on the spot. We've done it because the fish have been less active for the last sort of half an hour, so I've managed to get move swims, get all the rods on the spot, and hopefully they'll stay in the same area and they'll drift back up onto them bars tonight. So we've not been in the swim long, probably about half an hour, 40 minutes, and we've just lost one. So problem is it's dropped back, come off the bar, and it's gone straight into the weed, kept a bit of pressure on, and eventually the hook's pulled. So I'm gonna get the rod back on the spot, and hopefully land one of these beautiful A1 fish to show you. I'm going to talk to you about rigs, but I am keeping an eye on my spot because I have got fish rolling on there. But anyway, rigs. The rig I predominantly like to use when distance fishing is the hinge stiff rig, mainly because of its anti-tangle qualities and the fact that if a bed does pick me up or a fish picks me up and ejects the rig, it does reset every time. I like the fact that when a fish approaches from any side, that hook can spin and catch hold. So as you can see from my mix yesterday, I like a lot of small items in my mix, predominantly crush bug, insect meal. I opt to fish a 12mm pop-up over the top. It's usually in the half-tone bug, but I do like a PB pop-up as well. I have recently got some of the pink perils to really make these fluoros stand out on the spot. Because the hinge section of my rig is quite heavy and I'm only using a 12mm pop-up, I do prefer to drill them out and just add a little bit of cork, usually around 3 or 4mm. It gives me the confidence to know that my rig's always going to be presenting. And if I choose to leave it out for a long period of time, I know that that pop-up's going to stay up. Right, so we're finally into one of these pit 6 carp. Because you're fishing at such long range, a couple of beeps on the bobbin was all it took. I just saw the bobbin drop back, and as I walked down to the rod, it was a couple of flicks as it went up. Picked the rod up, and yeah, we're into one. Fingers crossed we can keep this one on. So it's now weeding me up. I'm just going to keep steady pressure on it and hopefully kick yourself free. It's that I can still feel him. Might have to put the waders on and see if I can get a different angle on him. Right, just constant pressure there, just kept him moving. You see him kicking, he's still around that weed. Oh, I've got him moving now. Let's hopefully keep him out of it now. I'm hoping he's still there and not come off. I'm just dragging a ball of weed in, but definitely felt like he kicked and come free. So, making the effort to move this morning, I'm sitting there seeing fish showing to my left. If I had just sat on my backside, like I say, I wouldn't have lost one, and then obviously having this one on as well, it's definitely worth the effort making that move. Even though I'd committed quite a bit of bait yesterday to the area, it's pointless sitting on bait that's not going to go anywhere because the fish aren't in your zone. But yeah, definitely making that effort to get up, get packed away and get moved. And it looks like a big scaly mirror. Come on fella, in you go. Get in. That'll do. Yeah, it's a nice one that, Vinny. Yes, mate. All the effort, mate, moving, putting all that bait out, spomming at 35 wraps. Yeah, he's a proper one, mate, proper one. Over the moon with that one. Go. The efforts of moving swims this morning, resulting in this 27.5 pound linear from A1 Pits, Pit 6, taken on a yellow PB pop-up, fished on an inch stiff rig, over copious amounts of bug liquid, absolute beauty. Over the moon with that. As you can see on this session, I've been fishing at a reasonable range. Here are a few tips that I find help me fish at this distance when fishing on the big pits. Tip 1, having the right rods. For me, it's no point trying to come to a venue such as A1 Pits and fishing Pit 6 when you've got a 12-foot rod and a 3-pound test curve. I would suggest going up to a 13-foot higher test curve rod. If the fish are at range, you've got that in your armoury to get out there. Tip number 2, for me, has to be the reels. I've done a bit of fishing with 2 different types of reels, the 35mm spool and a 45mm spool. I've found personally for me that a 45mm spool, the line comes off a lot cleaner and you get less friction. Tip 3, line and shock leaders. Personally, and luckily enough on the pits, I prefer to use a braided shock leader, which also gives me the option to have a thinner diameter line underneath. Me personally, I like a 12-pound line, which is in line with the rules down here at A1 Pits. Tip 4, for me, fishing at long range, you have to have a bowstring tight line. The indication that you're going to get on them bites can be very slim. As you've seen earlier, the fish that I landed was on 2 bleeps. So for me, tight lines and a heavy bobbin. Tip 5 for me has to be lead setup. I much prefer a helicopter setup over a lead clip. The reason being less tangles and the lead's at the front of the system, so it's never going to have as much drag as you're going to have with a lead clip. Another advantage of the helicopter system is that if I do land off the gravel and into the silt, my lead's going to plug into that silt, but my rig will still be presented. And as you could see earlier, I'm fishing a drop-off system. So when that fish had weeded me up and I kept the pressure, the lead ejected and the fish came free. So that's it for me. The last tip I'm going to give you has to be practice, practice, practice. Watch some of the YouTube videos of these lads out there that are casting extreme distance. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you put some time and effort in, it's a huge tool to have in your locker when you come to big pits like the one behind me. Obviously, I don't have the perfect casting technique. It's a sort of technique I've developed for me that works for me. Some people say I've got quite an unorthodox way of casting, but I found it's what works for me. It might not work for everybody else. I like to load the spom up. I use a 30-pound braided shock leader with a 20-pound braided line, ensuring I'm wearing a finger stall at all times. This goes for my casting and my spodding. As I like to do it, I like to make sure nothing's behind me. I have quite a short drop on the spom, probably more than anybody. I keep my arms out straight at a sort of 45-degree angle. I take a short step back, a long stride forward, and away we go. As I'd done that, I was pointing the rod at the spot, and I stopped the rod at that 45-degree angle. That gives me the most of the compression that I've just put into the rod. Again, I'd emphasise on the fact that you need to be out there practicing. A lot of people say they can't practice with a spod. I think if you go somewhere, a big open expanse of water, and maybe some maize or something along them lines, some cheap bait, that you can really get out there and practice and empty the spod out. I think that really helps. I mean, a lot of my time was spent practicing on here. When I first came down, I've never been a big spodder until coming on here and realising that fishing over bait was more effective than fishing on singles, which a lot of people do on here. So we'll do one more, and I'll run you through the bullet points. So spod loaded, good shake, get everything down. Making sure that your leader knot is at the bottom of your spool and that your line's not tangled around your rod. Like I said, I like a short drop, finger stall, pointing to the spot, rod behind you, making sure no one's there. Arms up 45 degrees, little step, big lunge, point that rod at that spot and hit the clip. So we've stuck it out till past yesterday's bite time, and sadly there's been no bites. So I'd love to stay, but sadly I've got to get off. So I really hope you've enjoyed that little snippet of my fishing on the big pit. I will be coming back because I'm going to continue to try and strive to get one of them big commons. But for now, it's time to get the rods in and get on the road back home.